Today on the ADHD Queens Podcast, we're talking about taking off the mask and leaning into your ADHD. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Erin Patterson, bringing you the second episode of our fabulous podcast. And today we're going to talk about masking. So, what exactly is masking? Masking happens in all kinds of places. Also, feel free to speed this video up to 1.5 because if you're an ADHDer, you might need to just go a little faster, and that will not hurt my feelings. Masking happens in all kinds of places. Any kind of people pleasing that we do naturally also is masking. It is when we try to cover up our natural selves with some more palatable version of that self. Masking is really just a clever name for exactly what it sounds like. Think about putting on a Halloween mask or a mask for a costume or a theater production where you're pretending to be something that you're not. People do this in all kinds of situations. They do it in dating relationships, they do it in work relationships. Put your best foot forward. Don't let anybody see the real you because they might not like you. Oh, goodness forbid somebody not like us. That makes me think of one of my phrases that I say often. I'm not for everybody, but that's okay because everybody's not for me. So ADHD kids begin to mask typically very early, girls in particular. We get a lot of those messages coming in. Sit down, don't do that. You're being too loud. That's not ladylike. And so we start to create this version of ourselves that is more palatable to the people that we are around. In 2021, research was conducted by a researcher named Daughter Witch, and he found that by the age of 10, ADHD kids received 20,000 more negative messages than they received positive messages. So if they had received 10,000 positive messages, good job, that was awesome, you did it. They had received 30,000 negative messages by the age of 10. So you multiply that over the years, and what you get is somebody who learns, I can't be myself, I'm too much, I'm not good enough, people don't like me, those kinds of things. And so they start to put these masks on. You can change your mask. Maybe you're, this person in front of these people, or you're this person in front of those people. But what happens over time is that mask really separates us from being our true selves, and it leads us to feeling a lot of shame about who we are, and feeling a lot of what people call imposter syndrome. We get a lot of, I don't know how to do this, I've never done this before. Hello, I'm feeling imposter syndrome all over this podcast, but here I am doing it in all my crazy glory. And even this morning, I got lots of directions from my producer. Don't sit too close to the mic. Don't hit the mic. Be still. Don't wiggle. When you get excited, lean back. I'm just kidding. She's trying to help me not overstimulate all of you, so I appreciate that. I do have a teachable spirit. That's important. And she's not a controlling ass. She's a very good producer director. When I told her, oh, this is going to be so good for the episode, she had no idea what we were talking about today because I never come in with the plan. Ruby, come say hi. Oh, gosh. Oh, girl, did you put on some weight? See, Ruby never masks. She's always herself. Oh. Ultimately, masking is really just not being your true self. And a lot of times we are not comfortable being our true self because we've gotten those negative messages from people. And so it really makes us feel like our true self is not good enough to be shown to everybody. Or if we show them our true selves, they're not going to like us anymore. They won't be our friends, or we'll get some kind of negative statement from them about, oh, you're too much, or you're so emotional, or you're too loud, or you're all of these things. And so we try to fit in these little boxes that neurotypical people fit in. And when we do that over the course of years or decades, even, then what happens is it wears us down emotionally and physically. It impacts our health, it impacts our mental health. And a really sad statistic that I think comes from, at least in part, the tendency to mask is that if you take 100 neurotypical women who do not have ADHD, three of those neurotypical women will attempt suicide at some time in their life. If we make that 100 women have ADHD, 23 of those women will attempt suicide at some time in their life. And so it's really important that we understand what masking looks like, how it shows up in our life, and then we look at how do we take the mask off. Take it off and lean into the ADHD without any shame. And so that's what I really want to talk about today is ways that we can do that. So we're not using so much energy to be somebody that we're not. It's exhausting and it's much easier to just be yourself. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are enough. You are amazing. And it's okay if you're weird and quirky and distracted and disorganized and all of those things. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. That way, you don't have to be perfect, but get back in the middle of the frame. I acknowledge that not everybody masks themselves in the same intensity. And when I look back on my elementary school, middle school, high school, and college years, respectively, I definitely was just myself in elementary school. And it wasn't until middle school that I felt really compelled to start trying to be something I wasn't. And I mean, even just like calm and sitting in class and not talking as much. Although I do think I got detention in the 8th grade for talking. That was the only thing I got detention for. So it was closer to 7th grade. 7th grade was probably the struggle for me. I wanted to be one of the cool kids. I didn't feel like one of the cool kids. 8th grade, I think I felt a little more comfortable at just being my talkative self. And then in 9th grade, by senior year of high school, I had kind of leaned back into I'm just going to be who I am. If people don't like me, they don't like me. And I've got my core group of friends and we like each other, so I'm not alone. And so I feel like maybe I didn't do quite as much masking. My masking was more academically. I wanted to look like a smart kid. I wanted to get good grades. And so I spent hours and hours and hours doing homework when my friends kind of did it way faster. And it was a struggle for me. I cried reading Great Expectations. My mom cried reading Great Expectations. I got lots of zeros on those quizzes. It was not a good. That was 8th grade. Yeah. Oh, that was rough. He is very curious. Jump up here and give us a Ruby alert or something. Get your ball. Yeah. Reading was tough. I still got the negative messages, but I think I was more for whatever reason my personality just insulated me from them a little bit. For example, senior year in high school, I had this teacher who I also had in the 8th grade who made me read Expectations. That was my homeroom teacher. And then I had in the 9th grade because he moved up to high school with us, and had him in the 11th grade for something, I believe, some humanities class or something. Anyway, so it was senior year and I had him again. And of course, I'm walking down the hallway the first day of classes to his class. All the other students are in their classrooms and I am literally in the hallway by myself because I'm going to be late to my first class, the first day of class. Undiagnosed ADHD. So it's me and the teacher standing in the hallway by ourselves. All the other students are in class already. And I say, I'm in your class again. And he literally walked into his classroom and shut the door. But like I said, I guess my personality just kind of insulated me from that stuff because I was like, oh, okay. And walked down and, tapped on the window because the door was locked. And so he had to let me in and mark me down as tardy for the first day of class. But I just leaned into that. I heard somebody say, ain't no shame in my game. Like, I am who I am. I'm loud. I get on people's nerves. I'm too much for people. But why do I need to feel ashamed of that? Why do I need to make myself quieter or less hyperactive so that I don't bother other people? I understand that there's an exchange that has to happen, but if I'm always the one having to make the adjustments, that's what leads to this burnout, this depression, this anxiety. So I am who I am. In fact, to tell you, I mean, that's not to say that I didn't feel any discomfort from those negative messages because I did, especially from my peers. When we went to our 20th high school reunion, I know it's hard to believe that I'm that old. uh, I remember shouting out the back door onto the patio, something toward to the people who were, I'd gone to high school with, and they were sitting out on the patio. And I said something, hey, where's all the, whatever at? And somebody said, oh my God, Erin, shut up. And I busted out laughing because I thought, oh, it's just like high school. I was loud and people wanted me to be quiet. And so I just never was able to comply with that for them. In fact, even in grad school, I got in trouble for talking. One of my professors asked me if I talked that much in every class or if it was just her class, and I assured her it was every class I talked that much in. To be able to say, I do these things and I'm not going to feel ashamed of them because sometimes they're just going to happen is where we want to get. Instead of putting a mask on and trying to conform to what society tells us that we have to do, we have to figure out how do we be ourselves and still make it work. So the ways that we pull the mask off and can be more of ourselves without feeling ashamed. One of the things that I encourage people to do is teach neurotypical people, teach the people you work with, teach other people around you some of the ways that your ADHD is going to show up. That way, when it happens, you don't have to try to hide it. You don't have to try to fight it. You can say, oh, this is happening. So, for example, I remember going out to a restaurant with two of my friends one time, and I was sucked into looking at my phone or talking to one of them, something like that. The waitress comes over and asks a question, and my verbal impulsivity said, huh? And my friends looked at me like, wow, that was super rude. I can't believe you just did that. So I surveyed the table and realized that that was very rude. And I said, I'm sorry, that was rude. I didn't mean to say it like that. I meant to say, could you repeat that? So they're not, mortified that I have just been rude to a server. I wasn't trying to be rude to the server, but my mouth just speaks sometimes before I can think of words. Another example, we were checking into a hotel once, and the wonderful hotel staff gave me this whole big old spiel about what was happening, and I was totally mesmerized by the shiny mermaid wall that was behind her. And so I didn't hear a word that she said. Instead of masking and going, okay, thank you so much, and then stressing out later about what did she tell me? Where do we have to go? What's this event time? Da, 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 da. I said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear a word that you said because I got sucked into the shiny mermaid wall behind you. And she said, ha ha ha, it's okay, it happens to me too, and tells me the stuff. So you don't have to pretend that something is happening that's not happening. It's okay for you to say, I'm sorry, I did not hear you. My brain goes off on these little tornadoes and I can't keep up with what people are talking about. Or, I'm sorry, you said something that made me think of a movie that I saw one time and I didn't hear what you were saying. Or if you're at work and let's say you're in a meeting and somebody's talked about something and you totally spaced out and we're not listening, to be able to say, can you repeat that? I really just spaced out there. Instead of being afraid, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get written up. They're going to think I'm incompetent. It's not incompetent if it's distracted. Another thing that I really think is important is use the right words for things. Don't say I'm incompetent when it's a focus problem. Say I'm unfocused or I'm distracted. Don't call yourself stupid if you forgot something. You're forgetful. It's different. So I think we're getting into a space where we're having more conversations about neurodivergence and the way that we are, I've heard some people say neurospicy or just different than everybody's different. I also think that we all, even neurotypical people, mask in some way. Put your best foot forward on a date. You want to do your best in an interview. That happens for all of us. The difference is the level of intensity that it happens. And so, if let's say you're a neurotypical person and you don't have ADHD, you don't understand a lot about ADHD, but someone with ADHD comes to you and says, "Hey, this is something that's going to happen," or "This is something that some way that I want to be my true self with you. I don't want to mask anymore or whatever." Then just to be able to say, okay, this person is needing to do this way. Like, who made these rules and why are we following them? Right? Like, it can be done in lots of different ways. So I think we just have to be a little bit more flexible. So if you're a neurotypical person and you've got ADHD friends, I need you to be patient with them because there are going to be symptoms that break through. There are going to be distractions. There are going to be I get off topic or I was late to the event or I forgot to bring something or I can't remember a conversation that we had. It's not personal. It is something that we struggle with, but also if there's something that's really bothering you that somebody is doing, then, have a conversation with them about it and say, listen, this is going to damage our friendship if you continue to be late. I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then the ADHD person, instead of putting on a mask and pretending to be something that they're not, has to take this feedback and figure out how do I hack this thing in a way that's not masking, but that also is making me a more functional person. There's a difference between like accommodating a symptom and masking a symptom. And so we've got to lean more into paying attention to the feedback that we get, not turning it into shame and then trying to cover up the symptom, but how do we learn to do something different and better that makes us more functional? The masking is just going to drain your energy. It's going to impact you in lots of different ways, and it's going to impact your relationships because at some point that mask is going to slip down and you're going to lose it, and usually it comes out as a meltdown or a depression, like a episode that you're in the bed for 2 weeks or you have to quit your job or whatever. So we just need to not do that. The screen. Medicate, caffeinate, hydrate. Random advice. Now we're going to move into a brand new segment of our show called Q&A. Such a clever name. I totally invented the name of that. Question comes from Ace-BT2YW. Do you think that there is any link between being LGBTQ plus and having ADHD, or possibly an effect of some kind? So I always want to try to give good, solid research answers rather than just, saying, oh, in my opinion. So I did some research on this particular question. And while there is not a lot of research available out there on the link between ADHD and LGBTQ plus populations, one of the research studies that I found said that potentially people with ADHD may feel more comfortable at exploring sexuality and therefore be open to more experiences than people without ADHD. There is a little bit of, the impulsivity that may go along with having ADHD or just, being neurodivergent and having a little bit more open mind about, oh, I like that person or I have feelings for this So that was one study. And I'll put these links in the description. That's where I would put them, down there, so that you can also read them if you would like to. Another explanation was that people with ADHD may have a more higher prevalence of questioning like the norms of gender expression or heterosexual experiences, and therefore again being more open to I'm going to go exploring. So it may be kind of a sexual adventure sort of thing that ADHD people are more open to. The good news is that more studies are being conducted now than ever on this particular question. And the word neuroqueer has been coined to describe the overlap between neurodivergence and queer experiences. I'm sorry. I'm just going to hold Ruby's toy here. When you raise a puppy in a therapy office, people hold her toy for her all day long in therapy sessions. And so she frequently brings the toy to us, her parents, to hold. First time it happened, my husband was like, "What is she doing?" I said, "She wants you to hold it for her." The good news is that more and more research studies are being focused on the overlap between neurodivergence and the LGBTQ plus community. And the phrase neuroqueer has been coined to describe people who kind of fall into both categories. So hopefully that answers your question. Like I said, the links are in the description below. So I want to encourage all of you, lean into the ADHD. Start talking with people around you about how it impacts your life. Start talking with people about the quirky things that you do, or the things that you feel like are weird or that other people have criticized you for before, and just say, "This is part of my ADHD. This is what it looks like. This is how it shows up in my life." Take the mask off and lean into the fact that your brain works differently. There's nothing wrong with you because your brain works differently. It is okay. You are okay. You are enough. And you don't have to wear that mask around all the time. Take it off. Be who you are. I mean, masking is generally harmless, but it's also generally pointless. Why parade around trying to be somebody that you're not just so other people like you? Find the people who like you in all of your quirkiness and all of your glory, and be with those people. Be with that community. Be with those friends. Be with us at the ADHD Queens, because we're just who we are. If you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to stay. Just don't hit the thumbs down button. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. All right. Please make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget, we might have ADHD, but we're queens with ADHD. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts now. Look how fancy we are. And remember, we may have ADHD, but we're queens with ADHD. Non-queens welcome too.